The United Nations is a terrible organization, a dictatorship protection racket. And in this context, it is a terrorism protection racket. And this particular organization, UNRWA, the acronym, the United Nations Relief, leaves out the for Palestinian part. It is not the big relief organization that they have for refugees and displaced people generally. No, it's a special relief organization just for Palestinians. And it was created in 1949 to handle roughly about 500,000 people who fled or were displaced, the creation of Israel, in effect. Since then, the United Nations has dramatically and illegally, in my mind, expanded the definition of what they consider to be a refugee. Refugees include people who are still there. Now get that. So if you've remained in the West Bank or Gaza, you're considered a refugee. Or get this, if your great-great-grandfather was from the area, you're a refugee. If you have dual citizenship from some other country and your family has had it for 2 generations, you're still a refugee. Now all of that is outside of the UN's own definition of what a refugee is. And yet UNRWA has expanded the definition of what a Palestinian refugee is, so now it includes millions upon millions of people that were never anticipated to be part of the program anyway. UNRWA's got a bigger number of personnel than the UN facilities at Geneva or New York City. The UN puts a disproportionate number of its resources towards helping Palestinians than any other cause. Now, since this organization has been around, we have demonstrable proof that it has employed Hamas terrorists, people affiliated directly and officially with Hamas. Their facilities have been used to store weapons, to divert aid that is intended for the Palestinian people to terrorist organizations, or to extreme Islamic groups like Hamas. Schools operated by UNRWA teach vile hatred, racism, despicable anti-Jew propaganda, praising martyrs. That's the kind of education you can get from an UNRWA-subsidized school. Billions have been spent by Americans on this specific UNRWA organization. But as despicable as it is the moral sanction that the UN gives to these defenders of terrorism and dictatorship that is probably even more deadly. British and American taxpayers have to know that when they support the United Nations, some of that money is directly going to members of Hamas, is directly going to propagandize Palestinian children, is directly being used and diverted by Hamas. UNRWA's interest in a peaceful settlement is negative. They don't want a Palestinian state. They don't want a permanent peaceful solution. What they want is to continue to have their aid organization, these many employees of UNRWA, depends on there not being a peaceful solution. Even if you're just a secretary at UNRWA, your job in effect depends on there not being a peaceful solution. UNRWA has long outlived the cause that the UN itself said it was creating it for. UNRWA is a front for Hamas and Islamic Brotherhood. So I don't see any positive value for it. I see only the perpetuation of war, suffering, and more October 7th.